Okay, today I was thinking just a run through
Okay.
of what I'll be doing. I had my Indiana audition last weekend. I thought it went really well. I only had to do Haydn and Bach. Very quick.
First movement?
Yeah, first movement, not the
exposition?
whole, yeah, just the exposition. Just by the time we got the, that's where they had me stop, and then I got to, about that part of the suite. And I thought it went really well. The Haydn felt great to me. The Bach, not as great to me, but I think just the difference in how it feels, how I need to feel into the cello other than kind of like floating on top for the Haydn, something that I wasn't quite used to yet, but it was still good, still felt good about it, but.
Do you know who was listening?
It was the 3 cello professors, so Peter Stumpf, Eric Kim, and the one other guy. But the weird thing is, there were 3, I was supposed to go at 5:10, I ended up going at like 4:40. Because they had like 3 people before me that just didn't show up. So I showed up to the green room, they're like, you're going. I was like, no. Okay. But it was okay.
Wow, they didn't ask you if you were ready?
Well, they said they were behind, and then people just didn't show up, so they're like, we're trying to catch up again. Because they had a bunch of doctoral ones after me, and they're all like 20, 30 minutes. They're like, let's get this out of the way. But it was okay. Still felt good about it. But do you want me to go a little further on, or? We'll move on to Bach. On the popper. I don't have to play all of these, but it's I like doing this. And just the soliloquy.
Good, good, that's great.
I forgot to add.
So, your audition's coming up, are all four things required, or is,
No, so it's different. So for Denver and Cleveland, I'll have to play the soliloquy. I'll have to play the Haydn and the Bach. Not all of them need the Popper, but I think they'll probably let me choose. But so for Denver, I have to do Haydn, and they'll give me a pianist that I'll be able to work with before the actual audition, which is nice. I much prefer playing with the pianist with the Haydn.
yeah, of course, of course.
But then I should just have to do the Haydn, the Bach, and the soliloquy. And I don't think they'll make me do both Bachs. They'll probably let me choose one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. So, tell me, like, there's it's a lot of music you played, and if you're given a choice to start with whatever, and including the popper, what would you start?
I think I'd want to start with the Bach, the suite.
Why?
The rhythm is more free, and I feel like if I start with that, I'll be able to settle easier. It just might be the opposite reaction, because if I start with the Haydn, I feel like I'm more clicked into a metronome. I can try and keep that going, or the rest of them. But if I start with Bach, it's kind of like more free. I feel it's almost less stressful for me to start with the Bach, because I know it's more my interpretation, less than what they expect for me to play out of this style, which is
Which do you think is your which do you think comes across most effective? Which is most representative of your best ability?
I think the Bach suite is not the best representation. Like, I've never really been able to find exactly how I want to play it, because the transitions between it, they always feel clunky. So I think the best representation is either the Haydn or the Allemande of the Bach. That one I've really come to enjoy playing more than the suite. But the popper also fits that way. It's more scary. It's scarier to play the popper than it is to play the Bachs for me. Even though it feels almost the same, because it's technically more difficult, but musically I'm able to get the idea across better.
So okay. I mean, you can listen back and see what you think. And I would, as best as you can, listen back as though it's someone else.
Yeah.
As though you're, listening to the audition, and what do you come away with? And you could even kind of do it as an experiment, like, start with something else and see how that might affect. My reaction is, I would say that in a way the popper is your strongest. It may feel scariest to you. I get that, because it's right. It's super awkward and exposed, but it just seems to me that, and musically speaking, it's not as hard as the Bach or the Haydn, but it is impressive enough cellistically. It just sounds like you're in really great control of that, even though it is relatively short, but there's a lot in that little bit. And so first impressions are huge, and if you can control that narrative, I might suggest that you start either with the popper or the soliloquy, which also you play very effectively. It's not as impressive as the popper, just because I imagine that no one really knows it. And there it's like, it's more about like how well can you sell it, so that when you miss something, don't try to adjust. Just say, like, just think to yourself, they don't know this, that I'm selling this, and I'm sticking to my guns.
Yeah, because they don't have the music either. So.
Well, they might have.
They might ask for it,
I you played for me a few times now, and so I kind of remember certain things about it, and so, even though I still don't know it note for note, but I think I know it well enough that I can kind of tell when you're a little insecure here or there, you know, and or you're not nailing it the way you want to nail it. So, and then I would agree that in terms of what seems the weakest because you're not as sure about it is the Bach. More so the prelude than the Allemande.
Yeah.
The Allemande is very good. It dances. And it feels like you have a much clearer idea.
I think one of the reasons for that is while I'm practicing the Allemande, I purposely play through it with different bowings, so I know exactly what the note is, and I don't have to rely so strictly on exactly how I want to play it. But I do the exact opposite for the prelude, where I have a very specific idea and I can't think outside of those constraints.
Yeah,
and I think it's because I've been doing it for example, so long. I need to just stop doing it and go back to it almost like fresh.
So for example,
so I always change the bowings and the type of like.
Can we just very quickly? Okay, now from here, can you just sing for me? And pick. I'm not really caring about it. Okay. One more time. Sing it one more time. Okay, so you're kind of emphasizing the third beat. I'm not sure that you play it that way. You know, because you're doing a bowing that it's a little odd to me. Doesn't quite fit.
I've tried to switch between doing it in two groups. So every two, but then I wasn't able to get what I wanted. So then I tried switching to every three, because then I go. But then it feels more awkward.
I know. So what you're describing here, the process, you're starting with a cellistic solution to the problem and letting that dictate the musical outcome, where it's kind of like trial and error. Okay, I'm going to try this bowing, I'm going to try that bowing, and let me, see which one I like, rather than you sing or you imagine what you want and you find a bowing that will allow that to come through.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and what you described just a minute ago about how you approach the Allemande, that's what you're doing with the Allemande. You're switching it up, and you have a musical idea, and you just what happens bowing wise, and sometimes it's this bowing, sometimes it's that bowing, right?
Yeah, I need
so get back to that idea, right? That process.
I've way overcomplicated the prelude for myself, and it's only been building. It's a bad habit.
The Allemande, just listen back, and a lot of it's quite good. There are just some notes. So like a like if you were to play just that much, and then someone else were to enter, I think you would end it differently than you are. So you're trying to keep within the metronome. and what ends up happening is the ends of phrases sometimes are sacrificed.
Okay.
And you need to find a way. It can be a combination of maybe a little bit of time, a little bit of flexibility in putting a punctuation mark in that spot, or finding some way that, you know, through sound you're able to shape, and even perhaps, because if you're going to play yourself just that part and stop, you dum dum, give you tail dum, right? You hear how the yeah, so you let it ring, right?
Yeah, that's one thing.
And that one, you know, that we have the luxury of actually playing an open string and it rings.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to then just let it ring just so, and as it's ringing, you start the next.
Yeah, I need to make singing a habit of mine because it's so useful. Because when I first was relearning this all along, I would just go straight through like a train, no stopping, no little breaks. And by the time I got to the, and I would just go straight into that, and I always felt rushed, even though it was still in time. But giving the time, like just giving that little bit of time, I can't remember exactly what the time is,
But it's also,
it helps me be able to.
but Hudson, it's also about the resonance, right? So you, with that low C, it will ring. And so how you let it ring, how you get into it and you let it ring to create that sense of it's finishing as something else is continuing, we can still do that. So let's say right, that's ringing, and I started already the next, right? Now it's you see what I Right. I mean, you don't have to learn how to play it in D major, but I'm just making a point that. Right. So okay, so there are going to be more moments like that, where you don't have an open C, and you need to find a way. Can you hold on to that last note as you start the next one? And it's just it's very subtle. It's the were you there for John Pointer's?
No, I was driving to Indiana.
Okay. He referred to it as psychoacoustics, you know, and it was kind of interesting because I wish that his visit was presented differently. He's actually a fascinating individual, and a lot of what he does is not through the cello, and probably his biggest contribution is through beatboxing.
Like with his mouth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen clips of beatboxers. Some of them are insane.
Yeah, he's pretty insane. And he will, and you can go on YouTube and see it, because I didn't know anything about him until after he had the visit, and I happened to ask him some questions, and it was revealed that he has this other side to him. And so if you look up John Pointer beatboxing, one of the clips that'll come up is he did a TED Talk. I don't know if it's TED Talk, but he was in one of the TED Austin shows, and he's a singer-songwriter, plays multiple instruments. So here he's singing and playing guitar, the original song, and then in the middle of the second song he starts beatboxing. And he's like, you know, he's standing on an acoustic box, and so his feet ends up being like the bass drum.
That's cool.
You know, so he's just like but so what he calls psychoacoustics, it's you're giving the impression because you've established something that it's continuing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're beatboxing, you can't be. He's beatboxing and singing, right? So he's
Mhm.
alternating between beatboxing and singing. So he can't be beatboxing or he can't be given the beat as he's singing.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's established a certain rhythm,
Yeah.
you assume that it continues,
Yeah, your brain just fills it in.
right?
Yeah.
And this is the same kind of idea, right? How you finish. And in this instance, it's actually ringing. So, right? So if I just let it ring just enough into the stardom, so even though I've let go, and you don't hear that D literally continue for another second,
Mm-hmm.
but I've created the illusion that it has, and that is that therefore two voices. Does that make sense? Right, so like that. Right. Now again we have the, if you're playing in tune to your open C string, it will ring. But even there, like,
Yeah.
as much as I can hang on to it, I'm going to create the illusion of two voices. That last one. So this is where to me the importance of not as much as you can being able to connect from one note to the next. If you have to, you hear the hole?
Yeah. Yeah, right there is a bad one.
It's that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, sometimes, you have to make a choice. Maybe it's not practical that maybe that's not practical. So then maybe you take time there. Or to play some, right? I'm trying to get, you hear it ring? There you go. Okay, so now you're listening differently. You're listening more for resonance and how
Yeah.
that can create the illusion of multiple voices,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And that also gives you the amount of time you need to get to the next note without it being separate. So that's one thing that I've done because my left hand just naturally did it, and then my right hand would just follow. So I'd have like little jumps, just tiny little jumps, then I couldn't connect how I wanted to.
Right. Okay. Haydn is, you keep getting better and better, and it's really come a long way. Just again, listen through and
Yeah, there was a moment where I lost the rhythm.
there's the usual suspect.
And I've noticed I go
In
to
the
my
second.
I
Well, I'm thinking, you remember
jump up
in the
to
development,
uh-huh.
I can't remember if that's I'm playing the right notes. Is that the right notes? because that, of course, it continues. It's right after, and so, of course, if you're playing with a piano, you're gonna
Yeah.
hear that.
2, 3, 4.
But we need to be practicing as though we are practicing with the piano, right? So that we're always hearing that, regardless if we have piano behind us.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But the Haydn and the Popper do feel just how I'm able to go from section to section. I mean, Haydn has like the breaks in between, which gives you time to breathe and think about the next part. But the Popper kind of just flows really well.
Yeah, I
So
wonder. I wonder, you know, how much of it is because of the technical challenge that's built in order for it to sound at all like presentable.
Yeah.
It demands a certain amount of attention to detail. And so you're giving it more attention than you might with an easier piece. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I think yes, it does make
and
sense.
so
Yes.
I think you need to treat everything regardless of how, just don't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
And to be listening more closely. It just, for some of it, even the Haydn, it occasionally I get, I still get the same kind of impression that you could have even greater control of the sound. You're already doing a lot, tremendous amount more than you were before, but I think you can continue to even more so. One spot, I don't know if it was just it just didn't go as well today. It was the tense. There's
Yeah.
and it's again kind of a sound thing, right? So here again, this is like how we finish. This is like right as there. That's better. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I need to keep the note before in mind, because I just immediately go straight to the next part. I just don't give myself the time. That's something, and I feel like that's not something metronome really helps with while you're not playing. Well, while I'm with the metronome, I can easily feel it, but I just,
Okay,
it's
so
hard for me to feel.
let's just kind of contextualize this for a moment. When we talk about a metronome, like how we use a metronome, what is it? How can it? How should we use it to help us? How are you thinking, Nathan? That's what you're describing right now. What? Teach me. I'm your student now, and
So
walk me through what your process is.
I always try and use, because metronome is like the oldest thing people tell you to use when you practice. So I've had a couple different ideas how to use it over the years, but recently for me, it's starting slow with all the like if it's in 4, you have the 16th note, depending on the passage, like what you have to practice. But then over time, I make it so it's just the beat, so bum, so you can feel the space, you have to fill it in with your head, and then I go based off that. But that's always with the slower metronome, and I slow practice that way. I haven't quite figured out how to do it faster, because I don't know if I stopped filling in the subdivision in my head, but I don't completely know. But I always start with metronome, specifically for the Haydn, because I feel like I lose my pulse whenever I have to take those breaks and like little breath, and I just don't keep that in my head. So I try and use the metronome to just keep that going in my head without having to rely on myself.
Keep what specifically?
Like the pulse. The
What
pulse.
I know, but what pulse? Like an eighth note, a quarter note?
It's 8 notes for the most part. Da, 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 da. Like when I do that, I start with a space so I can. Well, I start with the subdivision so I can hear it specifically. It's actually there, and then I build up, going less and less, so I fill it in with my head where I feel it. So I'll eventually have.
So make a note. I mean, I don't know how far I'm. We're probably about what 45 minutes in or something. Okay, it says 46. You can see good. I want you to listen back and see what you think of that. Okay. And that's not. I don't think that's how you necessarily sounded, but just think about like remembering that we are what we practice, right?
Yeah, that's very robotic.
So if you keep doing it that way, just ask yourself, is that really what you want to be hearing?
No. But
Okay.
when I get to how I want to play,
Right,
how I want to hear, I feel like I lose that.
Okay, so I think I've said this before, but maybe I just haven't said it enough. I feel that the metronome, we should not be practicing to stay with it. Because if we do that, then we end up sounding like, kind of like what you just played, which is like it's kind of militaristic.
Yeah.
Right? The metronome is we should think of it as a tool that simply tells us, are we rushing or are we dragging? That's it. And it's our job to convince the audience of our sense of tempo.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be constantly changing, right? Depending upon the mood at the moment of the piece.
Brahms is very much that way.
Well, so even, I mean, you should try this. Take any piece of any performance off of YouTube or iTunes, whatever, that you really like, of something that you would imagine that could be quite metronomic. So, for example, Beethoven's Fifth. Right? There's a constant eights, right? From the beginning to the end, there's just constant eights, right?
Yeah.
Or something, or Mozart. Or, and you try to put a metronome to it. See if it is constant. I bet you it's not. Okay?
Yeah, we did this. I remember we did this a lot for the Grieg Sonata. Because it had those.
Well, the Grieg is very different. The Grieg is very episodic, right?
Yes.
And so each section has its own feel, right?
Yeah, I need to.
Right, but where I'm going with this, like this Haydn, I mean, from the beginning to end, it should be generally about the same tempo, but that doesn't mean that you can literally put on a metronome and you'll be able to follow it.
Yeah.
Like you take a Yo-Yo's recording, Rostropovich, I don't care whose, it's not metronomic. Now, if you take a metronome and you probably need to do this more with a live recording than with a studio recording, because they can literally take a patch from the exposition and put it in the recap. But you take a live recording and you figure out, okay, what's Yo-Yo playing here in the exposition, whatever it is, 88. You go to the recap, I bet it's still 88, right? Second theme, 86, 86.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So when we practice with the metronome, it's just to tell us, are we rushing or are we dragging? But what I would go do about when you're practicing the metronome is not just going to the subdivision of an eighth note, because even though this is in 4, but we have right, we have 1 and 2 and 3. So the pulse is 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. But the heartbeat is kind of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But if we want to be really flexible, I would go as far as to then you can be flexible, you can breathe, you can put commas in and periods and all that, and
it'll still be in
and it's still steady and with a
yeah. I think I
steady.
just
Does
lose
that
the
make
whole-
sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and so we need to be internalizing the subdivision always. Yeah, and then learning, so you're really feeling that, that you, and so if you that's how I think you should be thinking about it. So then you put the metronome. Right, so like say if you like you want to take that little breath, you can do that, right? Like if you want to.
Yeah, and I
Does
do
it make
want to do that.
sense,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, so we're and look, this is, this to me is, I'm in 100% agreement with Leonard Bernstein when he talks about music as being a language. Not how most people say, oh, music's a universal language because, you can play Germanic music, Haydn, for somebody in France, and they'll understand it. No, it's not. It's not just that. It's because it works like language in terms of syntax. There has to be certain punctuation in order for it not to sound like a run-on sentence that keeps going, and then we have no idea what the meaning of the piece is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I love that. I know I've heard that quote before, but one of my favorite quotes about music, I probably shared this with you, but it's that you're giving the audience a certain amount of time, and you want to decorate that time with your music, so you have 15 minutes to give them, and you want to portray these certain ideas and these emotions in that 15 minutes. What's the best way to do that? A run-on sentence is you're never going to get the idea across because they lose idea of the subject and the purpose of the sentence, and it's the same way with music, and separated music like the Grieg and the Haydn, where there's sections. There's a clear difference than stuff like the Haydn or the Bach. It's just going right between it. Even though there are sections, there's not a break really. So it's trying to fit the gap between those two, because I find it easier to do it where there's parts because the separation, but I also don't like the separation because then I can lose it.
Yeah.
But like with something like
Yes.
Bach, it's hard to ever
So I
find
think
it in the first place.
you're getting so much better about this aspect. I want you to just take it to the nth degree as far as the subdivision, and when you do that, even when it's like so here it's about the 16th around. You know, whether I'm doing all separate or
Yeah.
I just made up a bowing.
Yeah, and I see. I don't feel like I could do that with the Bach prelude because I don't have that.
But it's
clear
because
understanding,
you're
and
not.
I haven't practiced it that way.
Yeah,
I haven't
you
thought
need,
of it that way.
Yes, you need
Yeah.
to insist upon it.
Yeah, but I have thought about it that way with like the Allemande, so I feel like I can do that with the Allemande.
Okay.
I just really put it in a bad habit into the Bach prelude. Definitely, it's just been over time hard to break that habit.
I know, but I mean just keep remembering that we are our habits.
Yeah.
That's who we are, and so we need to do everything we can to break those habits that we're not proud of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to reinforce those habits that we are proud of. Okay? And you have plenty that you should be proud of. Just reinforce those habits, okay? All right, great,
Thank
Hudson.
you.
You're in great shape.
Thank you. Yeah, for these recording things, the professor created like an app that we use called Scribe, and we have to take a recording of ours and we have to review it and analyze it. And it's